So we're looking to finish with a view on the future, and we have contributions coming up from Irini Papadimitriou, who is the Creative Director at Innovation Lab or Future Everything. We have a contribution from Sara Jones, who's the Director for the Centre of Creativity and Professional Practice here at our Bayes Business School, and a final word to the legendary Margaret Heffernan, the best-selling author and business strategist. However, first up, we have a presentation from Dr. Christopher Gibson. He is the Senior Policy Advisor at Research England and the UKRI, and we're delighted to have him here. Certainly, as Research England were instrumental in setting up the centre. Christopher, can I see you and hear you on the screen?
Hello.
I can, there we go. So Christopher, the floor is yours if everything is functioning fine.
Okay, let me just share my screen. So, well, thank you for the introduction and good afternoon to everybody watching. As Neil said, I'm Chris Gibson, Senior Policy Advisor for Knowledge Exchange at Research England, one of the constituent councils of UK research and innovation. So we've heard some fantastic, inspiring presentations and conversations here today, which will be hard to follow up on, but I'm here to talk to you this afternoon about how we're contributing to the vision of better collaboration between academia and commerce, and outline some of our thinking and what we're doing, in part through supporting initiatives like CebAI, to unlock the social and economic benefits that this closer working can bring. So for those that don't know, UK Research and Innovation is a non-departmental public body sponsored by Bayes, the government's Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. UKRI brings together the 7 disciplinary research councils, the UK's innovation agency, Innovate UK, and my council, Research England, which is responsible for supporting research and knowledge exchange at higher education institutions in England at a sectoral level. So UKRI's vision is for an outstanding research and innovation system in the UK that gives everyone the opportunity to contribute and benefit, enriching lives locally, nationally and internationally. So we convene, catalyse and invest in close collaboration with others to build a thriving, inclusive research and innovation system that connects discovery to prosperity and public good. CebAI, which we're here today to mark the launch of, was supported in part through the Research England Development Fund, which aims to drive innovation in research and knowledge exchange in higher education. CebAI's work utilising AI to transfer academic knowledge to business with creativity built in is a fantastic example of a novel knowledge exchange approach there that helps address a key UK government and UKRI funded priority. It will contribute to the government's plans to use technological innovations coming out of our universities for post-pandemic recovery and to cement the place of the UK as a global hub for innovation. The work of CebAI is going to be incredibly important in helping do all of this, as its work maps perfectly to one of UKRI's core reasons for existing, to help get new ideas out into the world. CebAI cuts across the piece with all of what I've said so far, providing not just technological solutions to the problems businesses face, but cognitive and socially informed solutions too. So about the wider policy environment, back in July, the UK government launched the Innovation Strategy, which outlines the long-term plan for delivering innovation-led growth. Its primary objective is to boost the private sector investment across the whole of the UK, creating the environment for all businesses to innovate and the tools and confidence to do so. The strategy also sets out the areas that will be the government priority missions and what it views to be the key technology areas of the future. Relevant to the work of CebAI today, AI, digital and advanced computing has been identified as one of the 7 priority technology families, key areas of UK strength and of future opportunity. We're anticipating more detail in the upcoming Levelling Up white paper and the UK's new AI strategy, which will outline how we will grow our AI ecosystem in the UK and how business and the public sector can responsibly adopt AI when they're both published later this year. And while the innovation strategy is primarily about business, it frequently references the work of the university sector as a source of ideas and talent to commercialise our world-leading research base. Research England's KE funding, such as the £250 million a year Higher Education Innovation Fund, or HIFE, underpins this by supporting and developing a broad range of knowledge-based interactions between the sector and the wider world, which results in huge benefits to economy and society. So this slide sets out the total income from knowledge exchange that English universities have received over the last few years. The continual upward trend in income universities receive from their knowledge exchange activity backs up this point about the huge value of university business relationships. The consistent growth in income received by HE providers over the last few years, up to £4 billion in 2018-19, highlights the importance of university-business relationship. We use income as a proxy for impact, so the economic and social impact of all this KE activity is going to be absolutely huge. Informal evidence suggests that over the course of the pandemic, performance against this metric has remained strong. And it's also important to note that while intellectual property and commercialization attract a lot of interest, the majority of KE work undertaken by universities is good sort of old-fashioned contract research, equipment use, collaborative research, etc. The vast majority of this won't be 4-star ref impact case studies, but represents the tens of thousands of examples of universities using their knowledge to deliver incremental improvements to all sorts of businesses. So in this policy environment, the role of UK universities in supporting collaboration between academia and the business or commerce worlds can be set out. And from all this, it's clear that universities help in a number of ways. By the commercialization of research with their technology transfer offices, making new ideas investable, attracting inward investment and creating new jobs. By helping develop a highly skilled workforce, including through training and CPD delivery. By working directly with business and other partners to bring new products to market, by increasing productivity and implementing new ideas and ways of working, and by acting as a local anchor for regeneration and growth. This leads us on to how knowledge exchange practice has been developing over time. So the role of universities in this space has evolved over the years and will necessarily continue to do so as R&D is more and more looked to as a solution to the challenges we face in the world today. Exemplified by the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, we know that we can achieve more through collaboration, and universities have a pivotal role to play in the heart of the innovation ecosystem. The innovation strategy signals an opportunity for universities and the wider sector to revise how we present ourselves to the wider world. By being open and outward-looking, as I know City University to be through my work with them and the wider London universities on university commercialization policy over the last few years, we can achieve huge amounts for our country and the world. This is codified by our thinking on how university knowledge exchange has been evolving and should continue to do so. What we've been labeling sort of KEF 4.0, the drive to more proactively address the problems we're facing in a collaborative, collective, inclusive, and interdisciplinary way to the benefit of everyone. In the UK, we're already in a great position here with a long history of genuine knowledge exchange, but we want to help to do more. So how is UKRI going about this? So first, we're further developing a continuum of funding for end-to-end translation and commercialization from research to market. For example, through our new harmonized UKRI impact acceleration accounts, which provide universities with more flexible funding to deliver the most impactful benefits of research. We're enhancing our access to finance offer for innovative businesses via Innovate UK, which will help bring new innovations to market and grow business. We're enhancing underpinning support for the wider ecosystem through work on people, skills, equality, diversity, and inclusion, research culture, and mobility. Through UKRI-funded universities, institutes, and infrastructure, through working with other research funders and devolved administrations, and work on levelling up across the UK. So I've been asked to finish on a bit of a call to action. So I'll just say that if you're a business or commercial entity out there with an idea where universities could help, talk to them, talk to their research offices, their technology transfer offices, as it's only by working together and collaborating that we can achieve success. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chris. Excellent timing in helping us catch up there. I thank you for the kind words about CebAI. I should say that the more flexible funding model that we've been living under for the last year really helped us pivot in some areas during the pandemic. We received the funding just the last week before the pandemic landed in London. And our launch required some creative thinking at a meta level and researching that we're very responsive to that. So I do want to say these new funding models, I think, are a model for the future and enabling us to be more responsive to needs.
Fantastic. That's always good to hear. So thank you very much.
No, it's necessary to say that. So thank you very much. Next, we have a talk from Irini Papadimitriou, whose job at Future Everything is to explore the impact that technology has on society and culture and what that might mean for us, all in 8.5 minutes, apparently. That's a big ask, but Irini, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you. I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. So let me share my screen. I hope everybody can see my screen now. So yeah, thank you very much. It's great to be here and also listen to the previous session. Very interesting presentations by also some really good friends. So yeah, so I'm the creative director of Future Everything. We are an arts organization based in Manchester, and we're not the typical arts organization. That means that we don't only work within the arts sector. We don't have a venue, so we mainly collaborate with different sectors, but also institutions from local government, tech industry, and also, of course, artists and art collectives. And the purpose of our work is very much to take discourses and critical discourses about the impact of technology in society out to wider audiences. So a lot of the work that we do is mainly taking place in the public realm. And this is what I wanted to share here today. A case study from a recent project that we did, which actually was part of research that I've been doing, but also I consider ongoing in terms of a project. And it was, the project is called U&AI through the algorithmic lens. And the idea behind this project was to create like a big collaborative curatorial proposal to bring in artists, scholars, academics, technologies, and but also engage with local authorities as well to explore challenges, but also opportunities around artificial intelligence. We started developing this project over a year and a half ago, actually maybe 2 years ago, definitely before the pandemic hit. And we started conversation with the Onassis Foundation in Greece, who were interested to commission the project. And we were very lucky and unlucky in one sense that this project, of course, had to be postponed because of the pandemic. But then we managed to work together with the Onassis Foundation and local authorities in Athens to take over a central park, the biggest actually central park in central Athens, which is what you see in the background here, called Pedion-Tuareos. So we felt that it was a great opportunity and challenge to take an ambitious project like that out in a public space, but also in a park right in the middle of Athens that is surrounded by diverse communities. Actually, the majority of people of the residents around they speak like other languages than Greek, so it's about like a 70%. So these are some of the questions that I've put here that we wanted to explore through this project, and through like a series of artworks, installations that we were going to put to install in the park, taking over like the majority of this public garden, but also through conversations, workshops, and debates, which unfortunately I'm going to speak about this later. We had to kind of move online, so the exhibition we managed to keep in the physical location. Also, three things that were very interesting in terms of responding to the park and this public space was the historically, Pedion-Tuareos was a military training camp, which was really interesting in terms of bringing in discussions about artificial intelligence. Also, it is a public garden that was kind of constructed in the 1930s, and we have nature, but it's actually a constructed image of nature. And of course, there's the element of colonialism there as well, because this whole park was based on European kind of ideals of the garden. So the way that we designed the project was to create journeys for the residents who were using the park on a daily basis, especially during the pandemic and lockdowns, but also for the visitors. This is actually the main kind of green space in Athens. So it's a space that is very often used by by citizens. So the first journey was talking about AI in the context of civic space and democracy, thinking about like whose voices are part of this new kind of new bureaucracies and systems. like whose voices are not part of that, but thinking about also monitoring and thinking about like the construction of the construction of society through algorithmic lens. Just to show just one of the works from this session is the normalizing machine by Mousson Zeraviv, Eran Weissenstern, and Dan Stavey, which is an interactive piece, and it's an experimental research actually in machine learning that aims to identify and analyze the image of social normalcy, if we can say that. So basically, it analyzes participants' decisions who are like deciding. They are made to decide like which image is more normal than the other, and from a pool of images from the participants. And what it kind of shows is this aggregated kind of algorithmic image of normalcy. So that was the starting point for entering this first journey. The second journey was kind of exploring what it means to be seen through algorithms, how we are being seen through algorithms, but also how we see society and others and the world through algorithmic systems. And of course, thinking about the bias in these systems and how they shape our world and society, but also how they shape our identities as well. We were able to kind of to place this large mural in the central square of the park that you see here, which is basically this is an algorithm. This is an algorithm that describes an area's predicted crime rate. And it's the algorithm that was used by the Los Angeles Police Department. And the group behind this is Stop LAPD Spying Coalition and Bill Balaskas. And Stop LAPD Spying Coalition is a community, is a group is a community group with artists, activists, and people whose lives were pretty much impacted by predictive policing. And actually, the title of this algorithm that you see here of the mural before the bullet hits the body is based on the title of the 2018 report that Stop LAPD Spying Coalition published, and actually led to the dismantlement of these of these systems that the LAPD was using actually to target people. And the final journey in the park was exploring how we use artificial intelligence to kind of understand environmental issues, but also nature as well, and it was questioning whether artificial intelligence can help us understand other types of non-human intelligence, but also how it shapes and changes our relationship with nature. And what you see here is a work by Alexandra Daisy Ginsberg of the northern white rhino, which is extinct, but it's kind of it comes back to life basically in a virtual form. So the conversations around that was our kind of how we often how we drive to extinction other species, but then on the other hand we use technologies to bring them back in other forms, in virtual forms. So obviously what we didn't, in doing this, in bringing this project together, which, as I said, is ongoing and it kind of takes part in different forms. Obviously, this was like a great opportunity to have it in such a public space. But we didn't want to present, the idea was not to present dystopian ideas around artificial intelligence, but also to explore how artists, how scholars, how researchers can bring in different lights and views and perspectives into that, but also help us rethink these emerging technologies and algorithmic systems, but also think of like how we could enable more people to be part of these conversations. And of course, think of different frameworks for about design and challenges of these systems. ZZ querying the dataset is a great example by Jake Elwes, which is a work that kind of shows how an artist here, in this case, can retrain like a machine learning and to bring in or to respond to the lack of diversity in the training data sets. And what he does is is training a generative adversarial network with images of gender fluid people, but also drag from across the net. And of course, we're
going to have to stop.
Oh, sorry. So maybe
just pull it together, please.
Yeah. So just to close, I mean, I just wanted to say that this project, in terms of its kind of how it comes together now and moves forward, is that we created a group, like a network of people, including, for example, Data Feminist Group, but also Algorithmic Justice League, doing important research in kind of thinking about the challenges in terms of race, gender, and other biases in technological systems, and helping us to kind of open up these conversations to the public, but also build in bridge with bodies that were the majority of people are not involved in, and in this case, local government, which is what happened in Athens. And I just wanted to close with this quote by Olivia Lang in Funny Weather, Art in an Emergency, in terms of which kind of reflects where we are kind of starting from in terms of taking art in other fields, in other sectors, and thinking about how we could make change. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry for overrunning. I'll stop sharing.
No, there is no need to apologize, Irini. You have so much of value to present to us and communicate to us. So that was fascinating. I would love to know more in a separate conversation. Next talk is from Sara Jones, who is the director of the Centre for Creativity and Professional Practice and course director of the interdisciplinary business master's degree in innovation, creativity and leadership. And I'm also told that she's something of an expert in setting up and managing international collaborations. That is what my script tells me, Sarah. So you may wish to elaborate on that. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm just tinkering with my screen in the background. Yes, what a pleasure to be here in this company, to follow Irini, to follow all those speakers. What a great afternoon. And I hardly know where to start because like Bunmi, I've been taking notes all afternoon, and I've noticed people saying similar things to what I was going to say all the way through. So we had Anthony Finkelstein talking about openness and trust. We had Dia talking about language. We had Jenny talking about the importance of interdisciplinarity. Alex on keeping it human, bringing people to work with. Maria, again, on people, community, crossing borders. Stephen on the explicability of AI. Ghislaine on data and diversity. Bunmi bringing minds together. The scariness of some of the issues we're facing, and again, trust and openness. And Irini enabling people to be part of the conversation. So yeah, wow. Anyway, maybe that makes my job really easy and really quick. Let's see. Since I was asked to speak in this final session on inspiring a future vision for creative problem solving, creative thinking, and new technology in business, I saw my job mainly as one of asking questions. So I think the overarching question for me is, how can we make best use of the extraordinary opportunities that the new technology is offering, especially in the context of creative thinking and business, without suffering too much from the unintended consequences that the use of such technologies can often lead to? So just trivially, when did you last spend time tinkering with technology that you wished you could spend on something else? this morning, yesterday, last week, quite recently for many of us, I think. How often and how much more often has this happened during the course of the pandemic, where although technology has provided amazing solutions to many of the problems we've faced, at the same time consumed so much of our lives? And these examples, relatively benign ones, of the unintended consequences of introducing new technologies into some of our business processes and our personal lives. And of course, as we've seen, we could go on to look at the effect of technologies optimistically intended to create social connections on the mental health of young people, or the phenomenon of fake news, or the destabilization of liberal democracies. So there's lots that we should be concerned about, but on the other hand, of course, there's lots we should be excited about, and how to think about kind of making that balance. So first of all, just by way of context on the reflections in the rest of my talk, I'm Sara Jones. My first degree was in psychology and philosophy. I have a PhD in human-computer interaction, actually in computer science, from back in the day when we were thinking about whether we should use a mouse or a joystick to navigate around a screen. So I spent the first decade or so of my career thinking about the computer side of things, but for the last 15 years or so coming back to the human side, and thinking in particular about the intersections between human creativity, digital technologies, and their connections with innovation, education, leadership, entrepreneurship. So for over a decade, I've been lucky enough to work with colleagues in the Interdisciplinary Centre for Creativity and Professional Practice, now a research centre in Bayes Business School at City University of London. And last year, I'm lucky enough to take on directorship of the centre from Neil when he began work on CebAI. And what we do as Centre for Creativity is work with individuals and organisations to build creative approaches to positive, sustainable change through our interdisciplinary masters in innovation, creativity and leadership, interdisciplinary research in the areas that I mentioned around innovation, design, leadership, entrepreneurship, education, and through knowledge exchange of the kinds we've been discussing today. So the reference to the international work is, I guess, that over the last 3 or 4 years, I've been part of projects where we shared the kind of stuff we're doing with colleagues in Armenia, Kyrgyzstan, and most recently 4 countries in sub-Saharan Africa, which is very exciting. So I wanted to share some reflections, first of all, about keeping it simple. This is partly just a note on the importance of good design. As per Dieter Rams, design hero for many of us, Dieter, a good design is unobtrusive. Good design is as little design as possible. So let's try to keep things simple. Also a note that this is especially important in the context of supporting creative thinking, where we want each user of technology to be able to use as much of their cognitive function as possible on generating, evaluating creative ideas, not figuring out how to use the technology. Where we want users to be able to get into their creative flow rather than constantly being interrupted with demands of a tool to save, update, change mode, unmute, etc. Of course, our digital tools are evolving all the time, and what seems advanced to many of us today may for future generations seem obvious and simple. So keeping things simple is a moving target. And we need constantly to be asking what's the most effective balance between taking up the new opportunities that the technologies provide and maintaining the simplicity that enables effective participation by as broad a range as possible of creative collaborators. So we had the example earlier of children of age 5, for example, or of older people. So how can we keep things simple to involve as many people as possible using a wide range of different devices and in different parts of the world where contexts may be very different. There may not be internet, for example, to be able to join some of our kind of creative collaborations. So a poster is a physical tool that embodies that sort of simplicity, while at the same time offering huge opportunities to support creative thinking. And I would invite you to think, considering your own business context, what is your digital equivalent of a post-it? My second thought is around keeping things human. This is why I love the fact that the imagery and what a lot of what CebAI says is all about people. Again, this is partly just about good human-centered design, of course. Also about remembering that technology used in creative processes should almost always aim to augment rather than replace the human, I believe. Although, of course, there are many questions about how precisely to do that. We can't simply hand over responsibility for creative problem solving to the technology. That way lies the potential for something incredibly dangerous and scary, to quote Bunmy. I think many of us might quite easily support the idea that if two AI robots really did begin to communicate with each other in a language that even their own developers couldn't understand, they probably should be shut down. So keeping it human for me means using new technologies to build creative communities offline, but mainly online or in hybrid form. And there's much still to discover about how to do that. Using new technologies to enable or facilitate creative collaborations as part of those communities. There's a lot of great work out there, Zoom, Mural, Miro, CebAI, but that too needs a lot more research. And my third and final kind of point is about keeping things open. And we've had a lot of discussion this afternoon about what the limits on such openness should be, especially in relation to personal data, for example. But I think there's much to be said in many contexts for openness, open standards for devices and data to enable broad participation. Perhaps more importantly, open approaches to design, so enabling co-design involving as many possible different stakeholders, as I've mentioned. Perhaps, well, thinking about making the way our algorithms work and the way our data is used open to inspection, hence the importance of work on, for example, the explainable AI that was talked about earlier, and, for example, the Open Data Institute. Although, of course, thinking hard about what data should not be open, personal data, for example. Most importantly, I think, is keeping our minds open. So keeping our minds open to the different perspectives of those from different disciplines, backgrounds, cultures, generations. The literature on innovation shows us that innovation thrives on diversity of all kinds. This is the very essence of creativity. So not seeing new things, but seeing with new eyes. And an interdisciplinary approach, bringing together a wide range of different perspectives, has been at the heart of how we've worked as the Centre for Creativity and Professional Practice and on our Master in Innovation, Creativity and Leadership for the last decade. So this is, wait a minute, animation catching me out here. So yes, this is about finding technologies and more generally languages, as again was mentioned earlier, that can enable a pluralistic approach to future development, to enable us to work with diverse groups of people to achieve a common good, to help us understand how best to know and live with different perspectives, and to cultivate and encourage open-mindedness and respect in order to achieve this. So I can see that I'm slightly over time, and I want to leave you with these two questions. First, how can we make best use of opportunities offered by new technologies for enhancing creative thinking in business? And second, what are your 3 key principles? Thank you. That's my contact details in case anyone wants to get in touch.
Thank you, Sarah. Always good to leave the audience with questions, and certainly your approach on openness is something that is essential now, to be open to new ideas and new ways of thinking, as well as sort of new ways of having to frame how we work. So very, very refreshing. Thank you very much. Our last speaker this afternoon is the world-renowned business strategist, who has 4 TED Talks under her belt, and these talks have been viewed a total of 12 million times. We're talking about Margaret Heffernan. Now, Margaret was unable to be here in person to present live, but she wanted to be involved, and our managing director, Sam Steele, has managed to pre-record an interview with her in the last week, which we're going to show you a sort of 10 or 11 minute portion of here. And I'm hoping that the magic elves will just make this happen.
Hello, my name is Sam Steele, and I'm the Managing Director for the Centre for Creativity Enabled by AI. And I'm really pleased to be hosting a conversation this afternoon with Margaret Heffernan.
Great, thank you, Sam. It's really great to be pitching in.
Before we discuss your latest book, I wanted to get your opinion on some conversations we were having earlier. After a very successful career in the commercial sector, you are now an academic, professor of practice at University of Bath and lead faculty on the Responsible Leadership Programme at the Forward Institute. One of the questions we discussed today is how industry and academia can collaborate more effectively. So what do you think the gaps are between the two sectors, and how do we align the thinkers and the doers?
Sure. Well, I think collaboration is one of these things, that sounds a lot simpler than it is. And I think that, many of the difficulties in a kind of academic industry collaborations are really exacerbated by the fact that actually in academia itself, there's very little collaboration. And I remember, doing some work in one university at one point, talking about how you get different departments to work together. And, one department always talked about the other department as those people, the other, the foreigners, the invaders, huge territoriality. And so I think, if you really want to do great collaboration with external partners, you have to start by doing great collaboration internally. And one of the really positive things I've seen on this front, because much of academia is not set up to reward these kinds of collaborations. But one of the best things I've seen, which we're doing certainly at Bath, is a new thing called a vertically integrated project, which essentially takes a problem or a challenge and brings in participants from all the different disciplines in schools. So I'm leading one on to do with the climate crisis, and we're bringing in people from economics, people from architecture, people from physics, people from management. And it's a fantastic real life way of learning how to work together and discovering the richness that lies with working with people who know tons about things that you may know nothing about or only slightly about. So I think the trend is in the right direction, but I think that if you really want to become a fantastic collaborator, then you have to start where you are and do some of these projects internally and learn kind of what makes them breathe and gain momentum.
Yes, I think collaboration internally is really important. But how do we start to bridge the gap between the languages that the academics speak and the languages the commercial sector speaks in bottom line and P&L, and academia doesn't really consider cost so much as concept, really? So they're really quite misaligned, aren't they? How do we bring that together?
First of all, anybody who wants to be a good collaborator should become allergic to jargon, because jargon is an excluding language. And equally, if you want to be a good collaborator, you have to start being very bold about challenging people's jargon and saying, that sounds very interesting. What on earth are you talking about, right? Because each of these disciplines is a culture, and cultures have their own language and rituals and so on. So we have to go into a collaboration with curiosity, not defensiveness, I think. And this sounds terribly basic to say, but actually, I don't think you can collaborate well with people until you know them as people, not as economists or finance people or commercial people or academics, but as human beings. And so it's hugely valuable to kick off any collaboration with a significant amount of serious time taken to find out, who are you? Where do you come from? Why did you end up in this discipline? What attracts you about it? What really annoys you about it? If you could do your life all over again, where else would you start? Once you get to know people as people, it becomes very hard to demonize them. And typecasting or stereotyping others is very typically where collaborations fall down. If there's a vacuum of knowledge about the people you're working with, those vacuums are filled with stereotypes.
So soft skills, really, and socializing is the starting point.
Yeah. And there's a fantastic piece of research by Tom Malone looking at the nature of collective intelligence, right? The whole reason we collaborate is because we know that groups of people can see more opportunities, find more solutions than individuals working alone, however smart they are. But what he tried to figure out was, why is it some teams are so much better than others? And what he found was, it's not IQ, it's not, kind of basic intelligence. What really defines outstanding teams is how connected they are to each other. Are they kind of in tune with the other members of the group? Do they pay attention when somebody checks out? And in particular, they don't allow for single dominant voices, and they don't allow for passengers. So really outstanding teams try to get an equal contribution from everybody, because that's how you get the diversity of knowledge, experience, background, and so on.
Some of the themes of the book, How to Map the Future, and it's a kind of reminder that the world we live in is volatile, unpredictable, complex, and ambiguous. But in answer to the complex, wicked problems that you kind of outline, you offer some really simple human solutions. And it made me wonder whether we're just overthinking and over-engineering. And I'm thinking about the story of the Dutch healthcare provider in the book is a great example of that, isn't it? You know, it was actually a very simple solution.
Yeah, so it's something that's been in my mind a lot lately, as we're struggling with things like social care here in the UK. So in the Dutch example, you know, they had a lot of the Dutch healthcare system depends on nursing at home, because it's very well understood that the sooner you get people out of hospital, the faster they recover. But exactly the same way as it's done here in Holland, it used to be, you know, had different levels of care, and it would generate a contract. Said you have 8-minute visit on Monday and a 7-minute visit on Wednesday, and, you know, an 11-minute visit on Friday. And there were two problems. One is it's super expensive to manage people this way. It takes a gigantic back office. And also the people hate it. They hate being treated like widgets in a machine. And so one of the nurses proposed a very fascinating experiment to the Dutch government, whereby essentially they would say to the nursing teams, here is your list of patients, do what you think is right. And, you know, this sounds kind of dangerous, but the truth is that nurses were very capable. They were very, very deeply motivated to do the best thing for their patients. And what happened in this experiment is they discovered that the cost of providing a high level of care fell by 30%, because the patients got better in half the time. Now, there are several things that are really fascinating about this experiment. First of all, they had the intelligence to separate the complex part of the problem, which is looking after patients. And it's complex because it's unpredictable. Two patients leaving the same hospital in the same condition will recover at different rates. So you need that on the spot, really good judgment that human beings can provide. So the complex problem of the patients was given to human judgment. The complicated stuff, which is all the bureaucracy and the invoicing and the charging and the time management and all that palaver, that was given over to software systems, because actually technology is very good at the complicated. It's often very, very poor and extremely dangerous when it comes to the complex. And so the combination of, you know, very good technology with very good human judgment created a vastly superior system that now not only dominates Dutch healthcare, but is spreading all over the world. And I think it's really important to understand, A, the difference between complicated and complex, and to know which part of your problem is which, and to appreciate that where you have huge levels of ambiguity and unpredictability, you really need human judgment, because technology and software are always going to be working on models which are rigid and are based on historical data. And if the problem's today, you want human judgment today.
Yes, I agree. In the Dutch healthcare example, commercially, they didn't know that A, it would work, and B, it would deliver savings. And so we're back to that faith and trust emotion again, really, aren't we? Because how would you persuade a CEO or the C-suite to invest in your hunch if you can't say to them, if we do this, we'll save that? Because that's the language of business, isn't it?
What's really interesting is many leaders who are very addicted to certainty are terrified of doing experiments. They're terrified of the unknown. And the result is they're governed by the unknown. They're pushed hither and thither, not knowing why, because they don't dare to kind of understand the system they're in even better. And so, you know, I've written a lot about experiments because these are not pilots. These are not things where we think we've cracked it all and we're going to do it and see really if it's as good as we think it is. These are genuine explorations to see what is it in the complex nature of our work that we can make better. And there may be a working hypothesis. In the Dutch healthcare system, there wasn't. There was just a let's try it. It's so horrible. It's got to be something. It's got to be found. And there's a recognition that whatever you find that you didn't know before is learning. And I think many leaders are addicted to certainty, so they want a guaranteed outcome before they start. If it's a guaranteed outcome, it's not an experiment. And, you know, there are also a lot of leaders who are afraid of the cost of doing this. And I think the companies that have the best track record in innovation are companies that routinely put money aside for this kind of thing. And it's usually a proportion of what they think their excess profit is going to be. But they also know that in a very uncertain world where things change unpredictably, if you want to stay ahead, you have to keep looking ahead and trying things and recognize even when experiments don't deliver what you thought they did, they will have told you something if you're smart enough and rigorous enough to investigate what it was.
A final question I have for you, Margaret. The theme of this part of the conference is inspiring a future vision. What is the future vision you would like to inspire?
I think the most crucial thing for me in thinking about inspiring work and inspiring people is that all work fundamentally is social. It doesn't matter whether you're doing it from home or on a campus or in an office or on a train or a plane or whatever. All work is social. It advances at the speed of your relationship. And the higher the quality of your relationships, the higher the quality output will be.
Thank you very much, Margaret Heffernan, and we look forward to seeing you back here next year.
Great. Good luck to everybody with their work. Cheers.
Thank you to Margaret and indeed to Sam for interviewing and recording that. And I also want to thank the other speakers in this final session about the future, to Christopher, Irini and Sarah. So as you probably identified, there are no questions being collected in this session, but it falls to me to draw some very quick conclusions. Personally, I've learned a huge amount today, which will inform our thinking in CebAI for the next year. These will be broader themes for how HEIs and businesses can work together better, and we'll be building on them in the over the next 12 months to return to them for next year's conference, which should take place in September. And I can almost promise everybody it will be face-to-face to allow more peer collaborations than Zoom permits. Finally, to enable you to follow up, all of the conference sessions will be published on our YouTube channel in the next couple of days. The Margaret Heffernan version will be published unedited, which is actually a much longer conversation than you just seen. It's our director's cut, and you will be notified by email when all of these videos are up on the YouTube channel. So it falls to me finally to say a huge thanks to all of our speakers for their time, their input and their support. It's been fascinating, and it's clearly we're just scratching the surface of the issue here, and there's so much more that can be done through more engagement and collaboration between many of our speakers and audience members. Lastly, can I ask Sam and Rachel and Martin to put their cameras on? These are the mythical elves that I've been talking to you about this afternoon. Sam's there. I don't know if Rachel's there.
I think Rachel's tied to our Twitter feed at the moment.
Oh, I apologize. Okay. So there she is. There are three fantastic organizers. We have here, you can see Rachel Lesabican, who I didn't know she was doing the Twitter, but thank you very much for that. She's done a huge amount of work. Martin.
My fingers are falling off.
Martin Marley Carlson.
Oh, here we go.
Ta-da! Magic.
There's real collaboration happening, as it should be, in person, in place. So thank you very much, Martin.
Yeah,
Great
thank
job.
you.
Thank you.
Really, really exciting, and my head is full of knowledge now, so it's gonna digest.
So thank you, and also to Sam, the managing director at CebAI, who, as you see, has been doing the aspects of Zoom, and also to Matthew, I should stress, who's been running the Zoom sessions today as well. Finally, I want to thank everyone in the audience for your interest and support and giving up the afternoon to engage with us. We see this as very much the start of a journey. CebAI is funded for 4 years. There will be another 3 conferences, if I've done my sums right. And as we go, we grow, and it'll be a much larger and richer event next year, in which we will be exploring how HEIs and businesses and others can collaborate across disciplines, key topics that I think we've all come away from today's conference having learned about. And I'm going to stop talking because I'm running out of words. So thank you all. Have a lovely evening and happy collaborating for the next 12 months.